A father's grief has just torn open a new, horrifying wound in the Idaho 4 tragedy. Bryan Kohberger, the criminology PhD student accused of ending 4 young lives in their beds, didn't just use a blade. According to Kaylee Goncalves' devastated father, Kohberger punched his daughter in the face during the onslaught. This wasn't a clean, detached act. This was visceral, up-close rage. This single, brutal detail shifts our understanding, painting a picture not just of a methodical killer, but of someone consumed by a furious personal violence. What drove a man who dissected the minds of killers to allegedly unleash such raw fury himself? The answers may lie hidden in the digital shadows and the darkest corners of his own studies. The months leading up to that horrific November night were allegedly marked by chilling preparations in cyberspace. Court documents reveal that Bryan Kohberger's Amazon account was used to order a K-bar knife, the precise military-style blade prosecutors say snuffed out 4 innocent lives. But the digital breadcrumbs didn't stop there. In a truly unsettling twist, reports indicate that just days after the students were found, the same account searched for that very knife and its sheath again. Was he reliving the nightmare, or admiring his alleged handiwork like a grotesque trophy? As if suddenly realizing the glaring trail he'd left, investigators found evidence of attempts to delete his Amazon account history right after the heinous act. His defense team fought tooth and nail to keep this damning evidence from the jury, arguing that anyone could have accessed his computer, that it proved nothing. But the judge saw through the smoke, noting the Amazon order was shipped to Kohberger's name, his address, his phone number. No phantom user, no roommate, no friend ever stepped forward to claim responsibility. The judge ruled it all admissible: the pre-crime purchase, the post-crime browsing, the deletion attempts, a chilling narrative of premeditation, and a desperate failed attempt to scrub the digital bloodstains. But this was just the first crack in Kohberger's carefully constructed facade. As darkness enveloped the King Road house, one young woman lay awake, her senses pierced by unsettling sounds. Dylan Mortensen, one of the surviving roommates, recounted a timeline of terror that night. She heard what she thought might be Kaylee playing with her dog, then Kaylee's voice sharp with alarm. "There's someone here." A thud, Zana's anguished cries. Then a man's voice, eerily calm, said, "It's okay, I'm going to help you." Peeking from her door, not once, but multiple times, Dylan saw him, a figure clad in black, face obscured by a mask, moving through their home. Yet one detail burned itself into her memory: his bushy eyebrows, the only visible feature above the mask. He walked right past her, silent, and disappeared. Dylan, frozen in terror, locked her door and waited, the passage of time a blur, until 911 was finally called hours later. Kohberger's defense launched an aggressive campaign to bury her testimony, claiming she was intoxicated, that her memory was unreliable, even scoffing that jurors might convict someone based on eyebrows. The judge, however, found her account clear, consistent, and profoundly relevant. Her panicked texts from that night, now public, paint a vivid picture of her real-time trauma. "No one is answering, I'm freaking out," she texted, later describing the intruder with something over his head and mouth. Critics have questioned her delay in calling for help, but trauma doesn't adhere to a script. Her fear doesn't invalidate her memory. It underscores the horror she endured, a horror she wasn't meant to survive. And now, Dylan is set to testify. Her words a potential cornerstone of the prosecution's case, all pointing towards the man with those unforgettable eyebrows. The predator didn't just materialize inside. He allegedly stalked his prey from the streets. Surveillance cameras scattered around the neighborhood captured a ghostly white Hyundai Elantra, the same make and model owned by Bryan Kohberger, circling the King Road house repeatedly in the dead of night. Not once, not twice, but in a disturbing loop, its headlights cutting through the darkness, a silent sentinel of doom. The defense protested vehemently against the car being labeled Suspect Vehicle 1, dismissing it as mere theory. But the judge ruled the footage admissible, the timeline admissible. The jury will see what the police saw, and Kohberger's Encounters with law enforcement didn't end there. Weeks later, driving cross-country with his father, he was pulled over twice in Indiana. Body cam footage reveals a startlingly composed Kohberger, calmly debating seatbelt laws and tailgating with officers, almost as if he were in a classroom, not a man unknowingly under the FBI's microscope. Unbeknownst to him, federal agents were already tracking his every move on that long drive home, patiently waiting. The prosecution fought to include these traffic stop interactions, and won, arguing they reveal his attitude, his arrogance, and critically place him firmly behind the wheel of that now infamous white Elantra. It's more than a car. It's a key piece of a horrifying puzzle, a silent witness to a meticulously planned approach. In the blood-soaked aftermath, amidst the chaos and grief, investigators found a small, almost insignificant item that would scream louder than any confession: a K-bar military-style knife sheath lying near the bodies of Maddie Mogan and Kaylee Goncalves. It was clean, except for one microscopic, damning detail: a single trace of male DNA on its snap. For weeks, that sample sat in a lab, a silent accusation. Then, acting on a hunch, agents sifted through the Kohberger family's trash in Pennsylvania during the Christmas holidays. A used glove, a discarded tissue, whatever it was, it yielded the DNA they were looking for. The profile matched the DNA on the sheath. The odds of such a match being random? Astronomical, practically impossible. Bryan Kohberger's genetic signature was, they alleged, at the heart of the crime scene. Yet his defense attorneys tried to muddy the waters, challenging the very science of touch DNA, arguing it could have been transferred, that its presence wasn't definitive. The judge, while cautioning both sides against using confusing scientific jargon, ruled that the forensic expert was qualified, and her testimony on how DNA behaves, how it lingers, and how it doesn't just magically appear on a murder weapon's sheath in a locked bedroom could be presented. The digital trail pointed to him, the car pointed to him, and now his own DNA, an invisible calling card he allegedly left behind, formed an undeniable link in the chain of evidence. Perhaps the most disturbing layer to this already nightmarish case is Bryan Kohberger's own academic pursuits. He wasn't just a student, he was a PhD candidate in criminology, a scholar delving into the darkest recesses of the criminal mind. He sought to understand the motivations, the emotions, the decision-making processes of those who break society's ultimate taboos. His online activity included unsettling Reddit posts where he anonymously surveyed ex-convicts, probing them for details about their feelings before, during, and after committing their crimes. How did they choose their targets? How did they plan? What did they feel? He even applied for an internship with the Pullman Police Department, the very town where he lived, offering his analytical skills to help them with crime data, expressing a desire to assist on real-life cases. Chillingly, one of his academic papers reportedly contained the line, "If there's no sign of forced entry, it may be suggested the woman knew her killer." This sentence, now viewed through the lens of the Idaho murders where the door was unlocked, sends shivers down the spine. Was his intense study of aberrant behavior purely academic curiosity? Or was he meticulously researching and refining his own monstrous desires, turning theory into a terrifying personal project? The question hangs heavy. Was he a student of crime or a student preparing to commit one? In the sterile environment of the courtroom, Bryan Kohberger presents an unnerving spectacle. He sits impassive, almost robotic, staring blankly ahead, his face an unreadable mask. Even as the 4 counts of first-degree murder are read aloud, there's no flinch, no flicker of emotion, no visible remorse. His defense team has offered an explanation for this unnerving stoicism. Bryan Kohberger, they claim, is on the autism spectrum. His flat affect, his posture, his gaze, they argue, are symptoms, not signals of guilt. They pleaded with the judge to allow expert testimony to explain this to the jury, to clarify that his lack of outward emotional response doesn't equate to a lack of feeling, or, more sinisterly, guilt. The judge, however, delivered a firm no. He ruled that introducing expert testimony on Kohberger's autism specifically to explain his courtroom demeanor could paradoxically backfire, potentially making the jury focus more on his behavior rather than less. So there will be no psychological primer for the jury on why he sits so still, while the victims' families grieve mere feet away. Yet behind the scenes, the court has approved a full mental evaluation of Kohberger. What insights can be gleaned from assessing a man who dedicated years to studying criminal psychology and manipulation? Some experts fear he might know exactly what to say, how to act, to potentially skew the results, whether to appear sane or otherwise, depending on what he perceives benefits him most. It's like administering a lie detector test to someone who teaches how to beat them. Adding to the courtroom drama, Kohberger's own family will be permitted to attend the trial, despite the possibility of them being called as witnesses for the prosecution, potentially testifying about his actions and words in the days following the attacks. The ultimate question that looms over this case is why? What could possibly motivate such a brutal and devastating act? Kaylee Goncalves' father's assertion that Kohberger punched his daughter suggests a personal, targeted rage, particularly towards Kaylee. This aligns with unsettling revelations about Kohberger's alleged interactions, or lack thereof, with some of the victims. Reports indicate he followed both Kaylee and Madison on Instagram, even sending Kaylee multiple direct messages. "Hi, how are you?" "Hi. Hi." She never replied. To a fragile ego, perhaps already scarred by past rejections, that silence could have felt like a profound slight. Accounts from his past paint a picture of a young man bullied for his weight, often by girls. Later, as he transformed physically, a darker bitterness seems to have taken root. A bar owner described him making women uncomfortable with creepy comments, becoming angry when ignored, and even calling a bartender a beach for rejecting his advances. Female students he taught in grad school reported he was dismissive and noticeably colder towards them. Could years of perceived rejection and social awkwardness have curdled into a murderous rage? Then there's the other chilling theory. Once, sensationally linked to his former professor, Dr. Catherine Ramsland, an expert who co-authored books with the BTK killer. While Ramsland herself has firmly denied any personal relationship or undue influence, the core idea persists. Did Kohberger, the aspiring criminologist, commit these acts as a twisted form of thesis, a way to prove his mastery over the criminal, arts to become the ultimate subject of his own dark studies? The FBI reportedly told the Goncalves family early on that they didn't believe this was a crime of passion from within the victim's immediate circle, but something colder, more calculated, perhaps even a community chosen for its perceived vulnerability. The evidence is a torrent, a confluence of digital trails, eyewitness accounts, vehicular tracking, and irrefutable DNA, all converging on one man, Bryan Kohberger. The criminology student who meticulously studied the art of the crime, who sought to understand how killers think and evade capture, now stands accused of committing one of the most heinous acts imaginable, allegedly leaving a trail of damning clues in his wake. The K-bar knife ordered online, the sheath with his DNA left at the scene, his car circling the house like a shark, the chilling gaze seen by a terrified roommate, each piece a crack in the facade of a would-be criminal mastermind. His illusion of control, if he ever truly possessed it, has been shattered by modern forensics and old-fashioned detective work. As the trial approaches, it won't just be about guilt or innocence. It will be a stark examination of a man who flirted with the abyss, who studied evil so intensely that he may have invited it into his own soul. The jury will stare into the face of someone who wanted to master the rules of crime, and they will be the ones to decide if he became its most horrifying student. Was this a monstrous experiment gone live, an explosion of long-simmering rage and rejection, or something far more calculated and sinister? The quest for answers, and for justice, for 4 stolen lives is only just beginning.